there are these culture wars that have been happening in America for the last couple of decades. And we found ourselves caught in the middle of some of that culture war where we had trolls on the left and then we had people on the far right. And we're like, how did we get from great coffee and giving back to being caught in the crossfire here? So we sort of stepped out of that and we said, listen, I want somebody with a Bernie hat and somebody with a MAGA hat to come into our coffee shop and sit down over a cup of coffee and say, hey, we actually have more in common than we think we do. That's what's great about America. And I think we're America's coffee. We want to bring people together.
Life's too short for bad coffee, bad conversation, and bad relationships, right?
Is that much of it? That's not much of a change for you, right?
My name is Kerry Kite. I used to load bombs in the Air Force, and now I'm a writer, a filmmaker, and an entrepreneur. Through using the post-9/11 GI Bill to go to college, working hourly jobs to pay the bills, and freelancing my way into a career, I've studied what it takes to successfully transition from service to civilian, and that study has become a conversation. On this podcast, I speak to other veterans, successful artists and entrepreneurs about their transition, what they did well, where they failed, what they learned, and most importantly, how they applied their skills. Episode 154 features Carl Churchill, an Army veteran and the co-founder of Alpha Coffee. Welcome. This is Veteran Made. Our merch store is live at store.veteranmadeproductions.com. Grab hats, t-shirts, and hoodies in both performance and tri-blend cotton fabrics. Use code VM-5OFF for 5% off your purchase. Veteran Made is also sponsored by GoPills, a military-grade nootropic that contributes to brain health over time. Use code VM15 at checkout for 15% off. I get my collagen protein from Bubs Naturals, where you can use code VETERANMADE, all one word, at checkout for 20% off your order. We're also proud to partner with True Made Foods, which makes condiments free from added sugar and sweetened with real foods. Use code VET at checkout for 15% off. We love socks in this house. I get my wife new socks every Christmas. More importantly, we love American-grown and made socks. Use code VETERANMADE15 at rucksocks.com for 15% off. And lastly, I end my day with Rack Out from Bravo Actual to maintain quality sleep, resulting in a well-rested body and mind. Use code VETERANMADE with a space between the words at checkout for 15% off your order. Enjoy the episode.
All right. Good morning from the great state of Ohio for me. Good morning from the great state of Utah. Carl Churchill, welcome to Veteran Made.
Thanks, brother. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, man. Thanks for being here. I've got my Peru in here.
Oh, nice.
First time trying the coffee and having it. I absolutely love it. It's great. It is 10 a.m. here for me, so this is more coffee than I'm certainly used to having in a day. So it should make for a fun podcast.
I love it. Well, I drink my weight in coffee every day, I say. So I'm drinking for you. I've got the Smooth Operator in my mug today.
Nice. Yeah. Appreciate the care package you sent our way. Looking forward to trying all of those. But yeah, let's get started, man. For those who don't know who you are, give us a brief primer on where and when you served and what you're doing now, and then we'll jump into some questions.
Yeah, so I'm Carl Churchill. I'm a U.S. Army veteran. I started as an E1, retired as a lieutenant colonel.
Let's go.
Yeah, long haul, lots of deployments, lots of tough jobs, and I wouldn't say I loved every minute of it, but I loved it. So yeah, I was with 9th Infantry, 3rd Infantry, 1st Armor, SOCOM. I was a military intelligence guy, but did a lot of cool things. Retired in 2006. So started when I was 17, a long time ago.
I love it. I love the cross generation. These conversations tend to focus so much on the GWAT generation. That's the generation that I'm a part of. You obviously served during the GWAT as well. Yeah. But I've tended to focus on younger folks, just especially when I got started, right? Like finding my peers and other people that were doing interesting things. I love it though when it becomes cross generational. I enlisted as an E1 in 2006, and you retired as a lieutenant colonel in 2006. And so we obviously both served a little bit during the same war. But you have quite a bit more service before then as well. So I don't know. I love it when that happens.
That's cool. Yeah, I love it too. I have friends that cross all kinds of age groups, and it's funny because when a lot of times people like, oh, Carl's a veteran and they want to send their kids to talk to me about basic training. I'm like, dude, I went to basic training in 1979. That was it was like 56 years ago. So, or whatever. Yeah, it was a long time ago. So, yeah, I guess it was 46 years ago. But I tell him to talk to my son. So my wife and I, our son is with the Utah National Guard, and he's serving with the 19th Special Forces Group. He started enlisted, got a scholarship as well, commissioned, and he's now in cyber. He's moving into cyber, branch transferring to cyber. So, man, warfare has changed in so many ways since I came in, and it's super cool.
Is that an Air Force or Space Force now?
No, so he's actually in the Army. Yeah, the Army is building up their cyber capability, and they've got a cyber branch. But Space Force, he may get recruited to that because that's really their focus.
Got it. Yeah, you said branch transfer. I didn't know if you meant another branch of the military or just within. That's really cool. It is funny how that happens. It's like even for me, Air Force basic training has changed so much over the last. I got out 15 years ago this upcoming October, which means I got in 19 years ago this upcoming October, and so much has changed over the course of the last 19 years. And so yeah, it's funny you asked this question. I mean, that's one of the great things about this podcast is I continue to have conversations with people that are more closely removed from service than I am. So when somebody says, "Hey, like my son or my nephew or my daughter or my whatever niece is trying to get into the military, the Air Force, like, what's it like?" I'm like, well, I don't know what it's like right now, but obviously I have resources that do, and I'm having these conversations, which, makes for a lot of fun. But obviously we tend to focus more on the creative and entrepreneurial pursuits on this show. So can you tell us a little bit about Alpha Coffee and how it was born and brewed?
Yeah, you
there
bet.
at the beginning stages?
Yeah. So, I got out of the military and, transition isn't always that easy, but for me, what I found was I liked startup companies because it felt a lot like the military. It was a small team that was focused on achieving a difficult mission. So I was with a company, a software company, joined as the 12th person in it. It was called DDN, and we did software for the construction mortgage industry. And so I was the COO. We grew to about 150 people. We had a lot of success. We had a $10 million offer that was on the table that we were considering. And the founder decided that he thought we should wait a year. We could get more money. This was 2008, 2009. And then this little thing called the Great Recession happened. And that was all about the construction mortgage industry, subprime loans, that kind of thing. So long story short, 6 months later, we were bankrupt. And I found myself in the middle of the Great Recession looking for a job. And everybody had hiring freezes. And, Lori and I we're pretty conservative financially. So we had money in an emergency fund that we thought would last a while. But when you have 2 kids and a house payment and a couple of car payments, that money burns up pretty quick. So I told her, like, hey, babe, we're in a financial ambush. Nobody's coming to help us. We're going to have to figure this out on our own. And the only way to do that is start our own gig. And so we were sitting there drinking some coffee that my brother-in-law, Josh, had roasted. Lori's from Washington State. I met her when I was stationed up at Fort Lewis, now JBLM. And Josh had just won an award for Roaster of the Year in Washington State. So his coffee was really good. And we were drinking it. And I said, hey, I've got this crazy idea. Like, what if we got Josh to roast coffee for us and we just sold it online? We could do it out of the basement. We could, use the kids as free labor and,
Interns.
yeah, exactly. Interns. And, that's what we did. She's like, hey, I've always held your hand and jumped off the high dive many times before. Let's do it again. So we did. That was 2000. We started the company on September 11th, 2010. Back then, it wasn't as easy to build online retail website. Shopify didn't exist. I was learning HTML code by watching YouTube videos so I could build build our website. And yeah, we just started slow and slowly started to build it up. And we started it really with part of what we wanted to do was to give back. I was feeling out of the fight. 2010, we were still deeply involved in Iraq and Afghanistan. And so we started out, our mission to give back was to send coffee to deployed troops, because I deployed so many times and, always drank shitty coffee.
Yeah.
And so that's how we started.
I love it. So, creatives and entrepreneurs talk a lot about inspiration, right? That spark. But like really what we need to do is build momentum. And then I think we tend to overcorrect and focus a little bit too much on the momentum building and forget what kind of got us into this game, which is that spark of inspiration, that spark of interest, that spark of looking around and seeing what you have around you. You're holding a cup of coffee that your brother-in-law roasted. Dive a little deeper on that moment when you said, hey, I have this crazy idea. What if he roasted coffee for us? We sold it out of the basement and sent it to deployed troops. There's obviously more there. Like, is coffee something that you had thought about before that moment? Was it in that moment, literally? Like, take us back to that porch where you guys were sitting and talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So that's a great question. A lot of people don't ask it. And it is, I think for me, so my mom's German. My dad was military. And at our house, whenever anybody came over, it was, you sit down in the living room and there's the coffee table there. It's called the coffee table for a reason. At least in our house, it was.
Yep.
Like, let me put on a pot of coffee, And so to me, coffee always felt like home. The smell of coffee brewing meant that, we were there were people coming over, we were hanging out as a family. But honestly, the coffee we drank back then was probably Folgers. I think I remember a big Folgers can, that the bacon grease went into, but then I joined the military, and in the military, coffee, at least when I was in, coffee was just part of the culture, and it wasn't really good coffee. Then I deployed to Central America in the mid '80s, and was doing some work down there with 7 Special Forces Group and some other agencies out of DC, and we'd meet with local comandantes, and it would be, they'd offer you a cafe, and they'd bring out this drink, and, it was like, I tell this story a lot. It's like you take your first sip and it's like the clouds parted and the sun shone down upon the ears. Like, what is this magical substance? It can't be coffee. And so that, like, amazing Central American, single origin coffees, local coffees were where I first started to taste great coffee. Then Lori and I was stationed in Germany, and when I wasn't deployed, we would take time and we'd travel, and we went to Italy and started, experiencing coffee culture there, just all over Europe, drinking different types of coffee, different brew methods. And, then we came back, and coffee became sort of a small luxury, buying good, high quality coffee. And I, as we were sitting there, and we always say good things happen over coffee. And we when we have big decisions to make, we sit down, we brew up some coffee, we talk about it. And, you know, I was honestly, for the first time in my life, I started working when I was 12. I was a paper boy back when they used to have newspapers, getting up at 4:30 in the morning to do my paper route. And, I had worked my whole life. I joined the Army when I was 17. And now I found myself as a grown man with, two kids and a house and all these responsibilities and all these achievements in life. And I was sitting there, and for the first time in my life, I was unemployed. And so there was this sense of like, okay, if I have to start all over again now, I want it to be something that's meaningful. I want it to be something where I give back, where, we create community, we bring people together. And, coffee just meant all of that to both of us. And so, yeah, it was a crazy idea. And there were many times where we should have said, that's it, let's quit, let's go do something else. The economy's improved enough, we'll just do that as a sunk cost and move on. But yeah, we stuck with it. And yeah, it's been awesome.
Yeah, I want to talk a little bit about that growth and the economy and your goals, because we've talked offline, right, about like really carving out the kind of company that you want to be,
Right.
and scaling appropriately for the kind of lifestyle that you want to have, which obviously includes the economic elements, but also includes all these other elements of our lives, right? Like our families and our geography and the things that we want to do and the things we're able to do, and the way that we're able to give back. But I love that it was such an organic product for you, right? Like I asked that question and you have a very long, beautifully long answer about what coffee means to you, both in your home, in your travels, in your work, right? Like it touches all these things. No disrespect to modern entrepreneurs who are like, hey, I have this idea, I think people need this product, right? The idea of like an entrepreneur solves a problem for themselves first and then scales it to solve it for the
Right.
population, right? To then, and that's great. Like we, our economy progresses forward because people come up with new ideas or come up with new solutions to old problems. But I love products like this that are like, no, this is home, this is love, this is family, this is something that I can pour my heart into, and then build a company and build service around it and through it, rather than just a capitalistic endeavor to generate revenue.
Yeah. I mean, if it was just about making money, we'd buy the cheapest beans we could get away with. We'd have just drive-through locations, where you could just slam them out and do, thousands of dollars a day. And, in a lot of ways, that's Starbucks is obviously the most successful coffee company in the world. And, what they do is they use mediocre at best beans, and then I call them charbucks, because they literally char the outside of the beans so that all you taste is the roast. And so it doesn't matter the underlying quality of the beans or if they're different types of coffee beans, you just always taste that roast. And then you layer it with a lot of sugar and other things. And, that's a recipe to make a lot of money. And, I'm grateful to Starbucks for upping the awareness in America that you could have something more than just a 25-cent cup of diner coffee that was weak and had been brewing for 24 hours, but I do think that there is also value in taking something and making it better, making it something that people appreciate, that there's craft to it and that there's real intention and, authentic care and that sort of thing. So yeah, I appreciate that very much. And I agree with you. I admire entrepreneurs that come up with something new and solve a problem and do something cool. But there's also room. And this is something that I've learned, Carrie, is that at first I was like, we're going to do 10 shops in 10 years. We're going to become a regional power and we're going to create this community all along the Wasatch Front. And then, as we started to pursue that, I really sat back and said, what do I want? What are we really trying to create here? And at the end of the day, we said, you know what? We've got 2 coffee shops. We have online, we have wholesale, and we're happy where we are. We have 34 employees that we love and take care of, and they feel like family. And we have customers all across the country, and we get, my wife calls them love letters, from customers, and we have a mission, and we give back, and we're part of the community, and that just feels awesome.
Yeah, that's one of the beauties of being an entrepreneur is you get to make those decisions for yourself, right? Based on the values that you have. And we'll talk a little bit about your wife and your business partner and kind of how you guys work with other veteran and woman-owned businesses in a little bit. But what I just thought of was, I believe I told you this anecdote before, and I'm pretty sure I've told it on the podcast before. My buddy, my old CEO at an ad agency I worked at before, his name is Ryan Kutcher. He just started his own beer brand called Dad Strength Beer, which is low ABV craft beer, right? So it was like he was mixing IPAs with Athletic Brew, and he was like, "Oh, I like this. Well, why don't I build it?" Right? And he's an example of somebody who was like, "Let me solve a problem that I know other men are probably people, but
right.
his particular he's an ad guy, right? So he understands market." And so he was like, let me go after other men, other dads who I know are probably want to have a few beers when they're out by the pool or out grilling with their kids, but don't want to be hammered.
Right.
And then, can't have a good evening and a good morning the next morning because of that. And so he kind of built this brand and this product that does a little bit of both of what we're talking about. It solved the problem, but then it's also this very personal thing for him and his business partner. And I'll never forget when I was working for him at an ad agency called Circus Maximus that he founded. We got up to 7 million in revenue one year. And we were all having a meeting. The executive team was having a meeting, and he was like, I don't want to do this anymore and scale from 7 million to 12 million to 20 million. He's like, I don't actually want to just grow an advertising agency just to grow an advertising agency. He's like, I want to have the life that I want to have with my wife and kid. I want to serve the employees that work for me. I don't want to hire 10 new people, right? That's not what I want to do. And so that's ultimately what he did is he downsized his agency, and we became partners and worked on some things. And then he let go of that agency. And then now he's doing the beer brand. And it's one of these things that we have this grind. My wife and I were talking about this yesterday. We took the day off yesterday because our kid was out of summer school for the federal holiday, and we just took a family day and things that we needed to do around the house, getting ready for our next kid, and building up her nursery and moving our kid into our other room. And we were sitting at the pool watching our daughter play, and we were like, yeah, this is good. We can do this because we're entrepreneurs. We took the day off to focus on our family and do that. And it opened up this conversation about what we want to build and how we want to build it and what size we want it to be and how much revenue we need for the life we want to have. It wasn't, how can we make as much money as possible, build the best podcast and production company in the veteran space and generate a ton of revenue and all of this. It was like, how do we build and craft the life that we want to have?
Exactly.
It has components of comfort for us and our family, but then also has components of giving back to the communities that we came from. And I come from the military community. She comes from the women's sports community. So it's like these conversations are starting to build around this idea of what do we want? How do we want to build it? And how are we actually going to do that? Why are we doing it the way that we're doing it? And I think entrepreneurship in this hyper capitalistic society we have becomes really crony really quick because people are just like, let me build the biggest and the best, generate as much revenue and exit. And then you're like, well, what am I doing? What am I doing with the rest of my life now that I've done that? And that's where serial entrepreneurs get into this grind. And I look at that and I'm like, that is not for me.
Yeah, no, totally. And that's it. You hit the nail on the head. I always tell young entrepreneurs that come and talk to me, I say, listen, don't let other people define success for you or, define happiness for you, because what Elon Musk thinks is like success or happiness you don't have to buy into that.
Right.
People say to us all the time, you guys should go on Shark Tank. You should go on Shark Tank, and I understand that, but I'm like, that's not really what we're looking for.
Yeah.
And that's okay for those people, and people
Totally.
that want to build that. Hey, more power to. I totally respect it. I understand how hard that is and how much work it takes and how much sacrifice is there. But I think part of it is I started as an entrepreneur very, very late in life compared to a lot of people. And for me, I'd already had those conversations with myself and with my wife, and we knew what we wanted. And it was exactly the things you were talking with your wife about yesterday. So,
Yeah. I mean, echoing your sentiments, like more power to people to make the choices that they need to make for the life that they want to live. And I love that Elon is doing what he's doing,
yeah,
because we need people who are doing things like that, but
totally.
like in our community too, right? There's this, I don't have to name the people. We all know who we're talking about. Like,
Yeah.
get up at 4 a.m., go to bed at 11 p.m., get 2 weeks done in one calendar week because of
Right.
all this life hacking and work hacking that you're doing. And we don't need that. There's plenty of people out there that are doing it. And again, more power to them. But really what entrepreneurship affords you the opportunity to do is craft and build the life that you want to have. And like you're just talking about building a quality product. And for you, it's quality beans roasted in a quality manner and served, with quality customer service. So can you talk about a little bit about your philosophy of how you source the beans, how you roast the beans, and like what the quality of your product is?
Sure, absolutely. And I think that it's critical. We always say life's too short for bad coffee. And you could fill in the blank on coffee with so many things. Like my wife and I spent a lot of money on our bed because you want a great bed that you get a great night's sleep from. So for us with coffee, it's kind of like good whiskey or whatever it is, it starts with the ingredients. And so we source from all over the world, really. I think in your care package, we put in some Ethiopian, some Central and South American beans, some Papua New Guinea, and then, all the blends that we have. And so we source all 100% Arabica coffee. There's two main strains of coffee, Robusta and Arabica. Robusta is a lower quality, not as great tasting, higher caffeine. So when you go to like Death Wish coffee, they use Robusta beans and a lot of instant coffee and flavored coffee is done with Robusta beans, but the quality from the Arabica beans is just better. The taste is better. The notes are very interesting and varied, from sort of, African coffees that have sort of this fruit forward, very juicy flavor to them. Central and South American have more nuts and chocolate notes to them, but we pull those together. We roast them very intentionally. And then in packaging, we use bags that have one-way bleeder valves so that air can escape, or I shouldn't say air, but so beans because we roast fresh a couple of times a week. And when we send out coffee to people online, they're getting something that's been roasted literally that week or the week before. And so it's still off gassing. So we have a one-way bleeder valve so that the beans can off gas, but no oxygen can get back in to start to oxidize the beans. So yeah, and then we try to educate our customers also on how they should store their beans and then the brewing methods. It's just, a great cup of coffee. It's just so much better, and that's for us that the quality, like there are other companies out there that have some gimmick, we talked about Death Wish, there's Black Rifle, there's a lot of big coffee companies, and they're master marketers. They're able to market in a way that people want that brand. And because we're in Salt Lake City, we know the guys at Black Rifle, and hats off to those guys. They built an amazing company, an amazing brand. I love seeing other veterans succeed. And they came to us and have talked to us a couple of times about acquisition and that sort of thing. But for us, it's like we just want to focus on one thing, and that is providing really great coffee and great service, and then giving back to the community.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's our focus. That's what we do. And I just want to be proud. I want, when I see somebody wearing some of our merch or, have our sticker on their car or something like that, I know that they appreciate good coffee, and that's really, a lot of people will come to us because we have a give back program, and maybe the nonprofit that we donated some money to, they found out about us there and they're like, oh, I'll give these guys a try. But they come back because the product is great.
Yeah.
That's the key.
Yeah. You talked a little bit about branding and marketing there. You also kind of talked a little bit about it with Starbucks. And I appreciated your perspective about Starbucks as well as Death Wish and Black Rifle and others. Because nobody should have a monopoly on the space, right? Like that's when capitalism works really well, right? Is when people are able to compete. People are able to compete in certain markets. I worked with La Colombe Coffee years ago and did an ad campaign for them. And as we were having, I think I had a Black Rifle coffee sticker on my laptop or something like that. And our client was like, no, joking, right? It was like, yeah. And so then he and I were having, I think we were having some whiskey right after we shot. We were having some dinner and we were talking about it. And so I asked, I'm like, hey man, like, do you guys like compete with Black Rifle? And he was like, no, I was just giving you a hard time. He's like, there's so much space in the coffee space. Like the La Colombe customer is not the Black Rifle customer, right? Exactly. He's like, we're actually competing with Starbucks, not because we expect to have or beat them in the market share, but because that's kind of our consumer profile is a little bit more after that kind of person. And Black Rifle has done a great job being America's coffee, right? And for veterans and for patriotic Americans and things like that. But you do still have to build a brand, right? And you do still have to have an identity. You have to know who you are. You have to know who your customer is. You have to know where you can meet them, where they are. So how early in the process did you all build the brand and think about who you were, think about who it is that you wanted to serve, and then craft, your design and your logo and your copy and your content around that? Was that an iterative process? Was it something that stuck out to you immediately? How did you go about building it?
Yeah, no, that's, we actually started right from the beginning. Our intention was to be, when we first started, the whole idea was we will be the local coffee for military families all over the country, all over the world. And that's what we'll do. And so we started building the brand right from the start, to really focused on the veteran and military community. I don't want the whole podcast to be about Black Rifle, but it's hard to avoid them as like they are the 800-pound gorilla in the veteran coffee space. And when they came out, they caught lightning in a bottle. They're the right place, the right time. Sort of that vet bro culture was really popular back then, and they did it in a humorous way, and they really nailed it. And at that time, that's when we started realizing that we weren't that wasn't really who we were going to be. We were actually going to be more of a community coffee. And we started to get a lot of people in Utah that loved our coffee. And we love Utah. We're outdoors people. We ski, we hike, we mountain bike, we climb, stand up paddleboard. I mean, that's why we live here. And so we started leaning into a little bit more into just more community focus. And we also, that whole give back program. I mean, we've sent over 22,000 bags of donated coffee to deployed troops. So, but what we found was the troops didn't order from us, but their parents did, because their parents appreciated a great cup of coffee and really appreciated that we sent coffee to their son or daughter while they were in Iraq or Afghanistan. So we started to focus more on the quality aspect, the give back aspect, because that's who we were and that's what our brand stood for. And, so we have that's kind of where we've ended up, and where it's definitely been this progression of thinking it's one thing, but then realizing like that's not exactly our space. And then, just being true to it. There are these culture wars that have been happening in America for the last couple of decades. And we found ourselves caught in the middle of some of that culture war, where we had, trolls on the left on our social media that are like, a human skull for a logo. Have you heard of, Sandy Hook? And we're like, and then we had people on the far right that would send us pictures of aborted fetuses and say, like, you have to post this. We got to end abortion. And we're like, how did we get from great coffee and giving back to being caught in the crossfire here? So we sort of stepped out of that, and we said, listen, I want somebody with a Bernie hat and somebody with a MAGA hat to come into our coffee shop and sit down over a cup of coffee and say, hey, we actually have more in common than we think we do. That's what's great about America. And, I think we're America's coffee. We want to bring people together. So anyway.
Life's too short for bad coffee, bad conversation, and bad relationships, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
I love that. And that's part of the iterative process, right? Where like you do have to take some steps. Again, like back to entrepreneurship at large, like you have to take some steps, make some choices, right?
Yeah.
Get into the space, get into the arena. And then you have to kind of figure it out, right? You have to do the work that's right in front of you, see what happens, see what opens up to you. Maybe some things open up to you, like, I don't want to go down that path, or maybe something closes off and you're thankful for that and you're able to refocus and go somewhere else. Not entirely, right? But like to make some iterative choices to really fine tune who you are, what you believe in, what you're building, what you're selling, what you represent. And I think that's great.
Yeah. And Carrie, the reality is we didn't start out as Alpha Coffee. We started out as Lock and Load Java. That was our thing, was like, hey, you ready to roll? Yeah, lock and load. That was, anytime we rolled outside the wire, that was the thing. And we were thinking like, what is something that crosses all branches? It's like lock and load. Yeah. And then when Black Rifle came on the scene, and we're like, we're competing directly with these guys, and they're just a powerhouse, and we're caught in this culture war. And I'll tell you, the biggest gut check ever was changing the name of the company. And that was when we started thinking, we said, well, Alpha, it's like the first, the best, and that's why, and that changed our identity to a certain extent. It was really just deciding like Alpha better describes who we are, who we think we are, and what we're about. So
it's a smart decision to make. I mean, was it that one-to-one? Was it like, hey, we have weapons and firearms in our name, they have weapons and firearms in their name, so we need a little bit of a rebrand to differentiate ourselves? Or did that
no, I mean, I think it was a couple of things. It really what got us going was being in this culture war where we're getting all these, this online hate or love, and trying to be pushed into one corner or the other. And Black Rifle embraced it. They said, this is who we are. This is what we're going to do. And, full disclosure, I have a small armory locked in a safe, at my house. So, I believe in the Second Amendment, and I have no problems with guns at all. But we just said, this isn't who we are. This doesn't define who we are. That's not our focus. Our focus is the best coffee out there. So Alpha Coffee made sense.
Yeah, I love it. I love that. I love that. You guys do something interesting with shops that you partner with around the country, and I'd love to dive into that. Can you talk a little bit about who your shop and kind of retail partners are and what your approach is there?
Yeah, absolutely. So, early on, we were approached by an online retailer called Man Crates, and they wanted to put our coffee in an ammo box with like a Cliff Bar and a carabiner mug and sell it as a gift basket. And we were actually recommended to them by some other veterans who loved our coffee. And so, we were like, there's not much margin in this wholesale stuff. Let's try it out. I'm always going to try something. That's it. So we did it, and we had tremendous success with them, and they loved our coffee. Their sales took off. And they're an example where they grew tremendously very quickly, and then they sold to an investment group. And then, of course, the quality just went down, and they moved everything to fulfill out of Mexico and, to reduce overhead. And so we went way up, and then it dropped off. But it proved to us that there was an opportunity to do wholesale, and we figured out how to do it where it made financial sense. And so then we started to get more inquiries, and we had we had a couple of veterans that reached out to us and said, "Hey, love your coffee. I want to open a coffee shop. Do you guys sell wholesale?" And we're like, "Yeah, we sell the 5-pound bags to coffee shops because you'll go through it quickly. It'll still be fresh." And people ask us all the time, "Why don't you sell 5-pound bags?" And it's like, why don't they sell 5-liter bottles of Coke? Because you take that lid off, if that coffee's sitting around, it's going to go stale. And we want it to taste great. So long story short, we started out with a couple of veteran-owned coffee shops, and that started to grow, and people, word got out. We still have people coming into our coffee shops here in Salt Lake who said, "Hey, I was in Weslaco, Texas, or Westlaco, I don't know how you pronounce it. And I was at the Daily Grind down there, and I had some of your coffee. It was the best coffee I had ever had. So we're traveling out west here, and we wanted to pick up a couple of bags." And so we started doing that, and we really try and partner with these coffee shops, and most of them are veteran and women co-owned, because just like in your situation, when you're a couple, and you're an entrepreneur, that's your life, right? Yep. It's not just a job. And so you both get involved. And so we've done that with, now half a dozen veteran and woman co-owned coffee shops around the country. And we're super proud of that.
It's another beautiful thing about entrepreneurship is you can do it as a family, right?
Yeah.
And there's so many veterans, transition out as service members, and then with their spouse, they're like, "Hey, let's start this thing and build this thing together." Because to your point, it's your life, right? And that comes with its own challenges, right? To make sure that you're integrating work and life properly, to make sure that you're not always treating your spouse like a coworker and not treating your coworker like a spouse, right? It comes with its own challenges, but it also kind of gets us back to the way things used to be in good ways, right? And it used to be a little bit more pillared, so to speak, right? Where it's like the man ran the shop and the woman ran the books, and then now, as we've grown and progressed as a society and as a culture, well, now you're able to kind of jump in and do a little bit of both, right? And you're able to really run things together. And you and I have talked about the challenges, right? Like on your website, it says woman co-owned and operated, veteran co-owned and operated. And the federal government does not give us the opportunity to benefit, right, from both of those things being equal. You have to choose one or the other in order to get the sort of DEI check mark that you need to be a vendor for whether it's the federal government or whether it's for corporate
Right.
entities that get tax breaks. We don't get a tax break
Yeah.
being used by a corporation. By vending for a corporation, but they get the tax break for it. And so it comes with its own set of challenges, but back to what we were talking about earlier, it allows us to craft the kind of life that we want to live and build the kind of products that we want to build, whether it's coffee, whether it's a brick and mortar shop, or whether it's stories in our case.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think the other, part of this journey for us has been, kind of going back to that old fashioned idea of being a business owner, being part of the community and having a responsibility, when we have success, to be part of the solution for your community, for society. And, and just, it's such a joy. There are certain challenges, but Lori and I are partners in life. We're getting ready to celebrate our 36th wedding anniversary.
Oh.
Yeah, we're going to be riding horses across Yellowstone for 6 days. And we're best friends and we're business partners and partners in life. And, it's a real joy to be able to share that success. And, honestly, we always say in Alpha, we have our mission statement's pretty simple. It's awesome coffee, be a warrior, have fun, and give back. And that's, it's like, keep it simple, 3 to 4, very short things. But then we have all of our rules of engagement, and there are 10 of those. The people on the team like to joke those are the 10 commandments, but they're the rules of engagement. And so our ROE, one of the key things is we win as a team. So we're all team based, and being a husband and wife team, we learned that in the military, right? You don't survive unless you have teammates that can help you out. And she makes me a better person, a better businessman, and I do the same for her, so it's awesome.
Yeah, and you talk about solving problems for the community, right? Like localizing that is the way to do it. It's like back to what you're building you have a national brand, you have a wholesale brand, you have, you ship direct to consumer. But then you partner with these shops, like you were talking about travel and coffee culture in different places. Like my wife and I like to travel a lot, doing less of it now than we used to with 2 young kids. Right. Yeah. But like whenever we do travel, it's like, well, let's go to the local coffee shop, whether it's international. We went to Greece last year and we're like, hey, let's go find the local coffee shops here. Like when I was stationed in England. Right. And so traveling all over Europe, you know the chains in Europe, right?
Right.
So you go to Greece or Italy, as you were talking about, other places, Germany, you find these local coffee shops. Same thing stateside, right? Like, let's go support a local coffee shop. I do not like Starbucks for the same reasons that you were describing from a taste perspective, but I also know their bottom line is going to be fine. I want to go support a local coffee shop. And, we've got a couple here. I think one of yours, we're in Columbus, Ohio, and one of yours partners is up in Cleveland. So
yeah, Roasted. Yeah, they're a veteran in woman co-owned.
Yeah, shout out to Roasted. We'll have to travel up there, this summer and go check them out.
Absolutely.
Yes, the more we can localize, and I don't even want to think about it too much in terms of problem solving, but more localizing community, being in relationship with other people, whether it's something as dramatic as somebody with a Bernie hat and a MAGA hat having a conversation, or it's just people being in conversation, in community over a cup of coffee at a local shop. Like, that's it, man. Like, that's community.
Totally. Yeah, no. And I agree 100%. And I also feel very strongly that, you should support businesses that are ethical, that are authentic, that, care about their employees. That's the great thing about capitalism, is that you have choices and you can choose who you're going to buy from and who you're going to quote unquote support, because every day we've got to make sure people are walking through the front door, people are clicking buy. We love our subscription customers because they're just on reorder, and they can pause it, or they can send it now or whatever. But yeah, part of the challenge is that you just every day you got to go hunt. That's the but you can do that in a way for us. And we didn't do this. We didn't do our give back program is called Grounds for Good. And we've now expanded it to include, so Coffee for Troops is part of it. And then our monthly mission is another part of it, where our team gets to vote on one of 3 local nonprofits. And they're not all local. So one of the great nonprofits that we support is called Heroes and Horses.
Yeah.
Micah and Mackenzie Fink started that, and they're good friends of ours now. We've gotten to know them. We've been supporting them for I think 9 years, maybe 10 years now. And, we send hundreds of pounds of coffee to them for the veterans going through the program, because we've talked to some of them. They're literally like, dude, I was sitting there with a gun on the table thinking about ending my life. And then I got this letter getting accepted into the program, and it just changed everything for me. And so we really believe that we do this because we care about it, but it's kind of like the more you give, the more you get back. And just in doing that, we didn't do it to get customers, but people really feel good about it. And we have young people coming in who say, I love this coffee shop because I love that you guys are giving back to the community, and that you're donating 10% of profits to, nonprofits that are doing good for the country, for the community, for our veterans, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, excuse me. I mean, coffee shops are where life happens, man.
Yeah.
when you're a young college student, right? That's where you go write papers and you go read and you go study.
Yeah.
Coffee's driving you, right? And then it's where you go meet up with people that you're trying to network with or build relationships with personally. My wife and I love to share cups of coffee together. It's bars are great. Go have a cocktail, go have a nice glass of wine, go have a nice meal, and that's great. But coffee shops are you walk into a coffee shop and you're like, man, this is community at work here. People are talking to each other, people are talking to the barista, right?
Yeah.
And it's just a different feel in it. And then you add this giving component to it. And it makes it feel, back to what you opened up with. It makes it feel like home.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I love it. All right. Well, I want to be respectful of your time. I'm certain this won't be the last. It won't be the last time we speak. I'm certain it won't be the last time we record a podcast together. But Carl, where can folks find you? Where can folks find the coffee? Where do you want to drive some traffic here?
Yeah, so we're at alpha.coffee, no .com or .net or any of that stuff, just alpha.coffee. And we're on Instagram. I'm not a social media guy, so I have somebody else who does it. And we I'm on LinkedIn. People can find me there. And I'm always available. I'm always willing to help out other entrepreneurs, especially veteran entrepreneurs. I've been there and I know how hard it is, and you win as a team. So, I'm there to help. I'll tell you where the machine gun nests, so you don't have to storm that hill,
I love it. Yeah. Get me in touch with the social media person. We'll collaborate on Instagram for the posts when this goes live. I'll tag you in LinkedIn on some things that I post there as well.
Cool.
Carl, to end each episode of the podcast, I ask an open-ended question. What's on your heart and your mind for our community right now? Could be a piece of advice, something you want to get off your chest, or something you want to reiterate that we've talked about today. But Carl, what's on your heart? What's on your mind?
We are the United States of America. And, when I was on active duty, nobody knew who was a Democrat or a Republican. It didn't matter. We were brothers and sisters in arms. And I just wish we could get back to that. I believe this is the greatest country on earth, the most opportunity, the most freedom. And, I just want us to be indivisible, one country, indivisible, so, and as veterans, we can lead, at home in our communities. So
Yeah. Invite somebody for a cup of coffee at a local coffee.
Yeah.
Have a conversation. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it. Carl, appreciate your time. Appreciate your energy. Appreciate the coffee.
Yeah.
We'll chat soon, brother.
Sounds good, man.
Thanks.
See ya.